German Shepherd collapsed in front of the house. What this human baby did next left everyone in tears. The wind howled like a wounded animal, bending trees and rattling windows across the neighborhood. Dark clouds rolled over the evening sky, blocking out the last rays of sunlight, and thunder rumbled in the distance, a warning of the storm about to break. Inside their cozy two-story home, Elena and Marcus Turner moved about the kitchen in a familiar dance as they prepared dinner, while their 5-year-old son Aiden played nearby. Elena glanced at the kitchen window as raindrops began to splash against the glass. "Looks like we're in for a bad one tonight," she said as she chopped vegetables for the salad. Marcus nodded while checking the oven. "The weather app says it'll get worse before midnight. Good thing we're all inside." In the living room, Aiden sat cross-legged on the carpet, lining up his toy cars in perfect rows. His small fingers carefully positioned each vehicle, and his face scrunched in concentration. The sound of his own voice, mimicking engine noises, filled the room as he pushed a red fire truck along an imaginary road. Then, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, followed by a loud crack of thunder that made Elena jump. The lights flickered once, twice, but stayed on. "Sweetie, dinner will be ready soon," Elena called, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. Yet Aiden did not respond. He had suddenly gone very still. His toy car was frozen mid-journey, his eyes fixed on the front window, his head tilted as if listening for something. Elena tried again, noticing the change in her son's demeanor. Slowly, Aiden stood up, abandoning his cars. He walked to the window and pressed his small palm against the glass. "Mom, there's something out there," he said in an unusually quiet voice. Elena exchanged a glance with Marcus before making her way toward her son. "What is it, honey? Did you see a raccoon again?" Aiden shook his head and stared out. "No, it's big." A faint, insistent scratching came from the front door, not the wind or branches scraping, but a deliberate, almost desperate sound. Marcus set aside the oven mitts and cautiously approached the door. "It's probably just a branch that fell against the door," he said, though his tone betrayed uncertainty. The scratching sounded again, followed by a soft whine. "Dad, open it," Aiden urged, tugging at his father's shirt. "Someone needs help." Marcus hesitated, then reached for the doorknob. "Stand back, both of you," he instructed before slowly pulling the door open. The wind rushed in immediately, carrying a spray of cold rain. But it wasn't the weather that made Elena gasp. Slumped over the doorstep was a massive German shepherd with dark fur matted by mud and rain, clinging to a body that looked far too thin. One side of its body bore an angry red wound, partially crusted with dried blood. The dog's chest heaved with labored breaths, each one more difficult than the last. It lifted its head slightly, its amber eyes meeting Marcus's in a look that pleaded for help. Elena instinctively reached for Aiden and pulled him back. "Marcus," she whispered tightly, "be careful." The German shepherd made no move to get up or approach. It simply lay there, defeated and exhausted, its eyes never leaving Marcus's face. "Dad, he's hurt," Aiden said in a small, concerned voice as he tried to wriggle free from his mother's grasp. "Aiden, stay back," Elena warned, tightening her hold. "We don't know this dog. It could be dangerous." But Aiden looked up with eyes that seemed wiser than his 5 years. "Mom, he needs help." Marcus knelt slowly, keeping a safe distance from the injured animal. The dog watched him without any aggressive moves, no growling, no baring of teeth. Instead, it let out another soft whine, almost like a sigh. "He has a collar," Marcus observed. Leaning closer, he continued, Let me see if there's a tag." The dog did not resist as Marcus carefully reached for the worn leather collar around its neck. A small metal tag dangled from it. "Rex," Marcus read aloud. "That's his name." Unfortunately, the rest of the information was worn away. Marcus squinted at the tag, trying to make out an address or phone number, but the metal was too scratched and faded. Rainwater began to pool around the dog, mixing with small spots of fresh blood from his wound. "Rex?" Marcus murmured, his eyes beginning to droop with exhaustion. "We can't just leave him out here," Aiden pleaded, his lower lip trembling. "He'll die, Daddy." Elena felt fear tighten her chest. Taking in the sight of an injured dog on their doorstep during a storm was risky, especially with a young child in the house. What if he had rabies? What if he turned aggressive once he regained his strength? Yet, looking at Rex, clearly beaten down by hardships, she felt something else. Compassion. Marcus, sensing Elena's uncertainty, looked from the raging storm outside back at the dog. Sighing deeply, he said, "We can't leave him in this rain. He's in bad shape, but I don't think we have a choice. Look at him, Elena. He won't make it through the night without help." Thunder cracked overhead, causing Rex to flinch. Despite his tired eyes, the dog found Aiden, and for a moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. With a surprising conviction, Aiden declared, "He chose our house, Mom. He knew we'd help him." Elena hesitated, glancing from her son to the dog and back again. There was something strange about the certainty in Aiden's eyes. "All right," she finally conceded. "But we must be careful. We'll call the vet first thing in the morning." Marcus nodded and carefully slid his arms under the large dog. "Easy, buddy. We're going to help you, Rex," he said softly as Rex whimpered while being carried inside. His body felt surprisingly light for a dog his size, a further sign of how long he had been without proper care. As Marcus carried Rex into the house, Aiden ran ahead to the living room. "Put him on my blanket, Dad. I'll get some water," he called. Elena watched her son sprint to the kitchen for a bowl of water, his earlier play completely forgotten. There was no fear in him, only determination to help the injured animal. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment. Marcus gently laid Rex on Aiden's favorite blue blanket, usually draped over the couch. The dog's breathing was shallow, its eyes half closed from exhaustion. "He's burning up," Marcus noted, placing a hand on Rex's head. "And this wound looks infected. I'm not sure he'll make it until morning without antibiotics." Aiden returned with a bowl of water, carefully setting it near Rex's head, and before either parent could stop him, he knelt beside the dog. "Aiden, be careful," Elena warned, her heart pounding, but Aiden simply placed his small hand on Rex's head and stroked it gently. "It's okay, Rex. You're safe now." Then, to everyone's astonishment, Rex's tail thumped once against the blanket. The dog stretched his neck just enough to lick Aiden's fingers, a gesture of trust that brought tears to Elena's eyes. "How did you know his name?" Marcus asked, surprised. "I just read it from his tag," Aiden replied with a shrug while continuing to pet Rex. "He told me." Elena and Marcus exchanged concerned glances. There was something undeniably odd about the entire situation. The way Rex had appeared on their doorstep during a storm, the immediate bond between Aiden and the strange dog. "I'm calling Dr. Patel," Marcus said as he pulled out his phone. "Maybe he knows an emergency vet service." As Marcus made the call, Elena watched Aiden sitting cross-legged beside Rex, speaking to the dog in soft, reassuring tones. Although she couldn't make out every word, The gentleness in Aiden's voice was clear. Rex's eyes remained fixed on the boy, as though he understood every word. After a brief silence, Marcus hung up. "Dr. Patel isn't answering, and the emergency vet service can't send anyone until morning because of the storm," he reported. Elena's worry deepened as she asked, "Then what do we do until then?" Marcus replied, "We'll clean his wound as best as we can, keep him warm, and make sure he stays hydrated. That's all we can do for now." As he gathered first aid supplies, Elena knelt beside Aiden. "Aiden, honey, we need to step back while Daddy helps Rex." But Aiden shook his head firmly. "I need to stay." Marcus returned with a bowl of warm water, clean towels, and the first aid kit. Carefully, he began cleaning the mud from Rex's fur, revealing a clean 4-inch cut along his side. "This doesn't look like an attack by another animal," Marcus murmured. "It's too straight, too clean." "What are you saying?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. "I think someone might have deliberately wounded him," Marcus replied, his voice tight with anger. "Who would hurt Rex?" Aiden's eyes widened. "Some people can be really cruel, buddy," Marcus said as he dabbed antiseptic on the cut. Rex winced, but remained still. "But he's safe with us now," Marcus added. As Marcus worked, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Rex's story than a simple case of animal cruelty. The way he had collapsed right on their doorstep, the inexplicable bond between Aiden and this dog, it all felt significant. "Maybe it was fate," Marcus said softly as he finished bandaging the wound. He wouldn't survive the night without help. Rex's eyes closed slowly as his breathing became steadier. "Aiden, it's time for dinner," Elena called gently. "Aren't you hungry?" Aiden replied quietly, "I'm not hungry. I just want to stay with him." Elena was about to insist otherwise when she saw the fierce protectiveness in her son's eyes, a maturity beyond his years. "All right," she conceded. "I'll bring your dinner here." Later, as Elena and Marcus sat together, Marcus whispered, "There's something odd about all this. The way Aiden is with Rex." Elena nodded. "It's like they already know each other." They both glanced over at Aiden, who was now softly singing a lullaby to the sleeping dog, the same lullaby Elena used to sing when he was afraid during thunderstorms. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the Turner home a strange peace had settled, a peace centered around a boy and a dog who, against all odds, had found each other in the midst of chaos. When dawn broke, gentle sunlight replaced the storm's fury. Elena awoke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Aiden's laughter, a sound she hadn't heard in days. She followed the sound to the living room and found her son sitting cross-legged beside Rex, animatedly telling the dog an elaborate story about dragons. Rex looked better than the night before. His eyes were clearer and more alert, and though he still lay on the blanket, his posture was less strained. The bandage on his side showed only small spots of fresh blood. "His fever broke sometime last night," Marcus said, handing Elena a mug of coffee. "That's good," Elena replied, watching as Aiden gently stroked Rex's ears. "The vet said we have an 11 o'clock appointment." Aiden's face suddenly grew serious. "Rex doesn't want to go to the vet," he insisted. Elena knelt beside him. "Honey, he has to. He's hurt and needs medicine." Aiden and Marcus exchanged concerned glances. "Did you have a bad dream?" Marcus asked softly. Aiden shook his head, his little face set in stubborn determination. "Rex told me," he said, before Elena could question further. Elena's eyes widened. "How did you know about that?" she asked, heart pounding. Before she could probe more, Aiden ran back to Rex. Marcus and Elena both sensed that something was very unusual, a connection between their son and Rex that defied explanation. After the appointment at the veterinary clinic, Dr. Roberts examined Rex thoroughly. With experienced, gentle hands, she confirmed that the wound was a clean 4-inch cut, no more than 24 hours old. "Who would do this?" Elena asked, wrapping her arm protectively around Aiden. Dr. Roberts shook her head sadly. "Unfortunately, animal cruelty isn't as rare as we'd like it to be." She noted that although Rex was malnourished and dehydrated, his overall condition was surprisingly stable. "He hasn't been stray for very long. Let's check for a microchip." Marcus requested the scan, and after a moment, Dr. Roberts frowned. "That's odd. There is a chip, but it's not registering properly. It might be damaged or very old. I'll need to send the code to our database." While waiting for the results, Rex kept his eyes fixed on Aiden, who sat beside him with one small hand resting protectively on the dog's head. "I've never seen a child bond so quickly with an animal," Dr. Roberts commented. "Usually there's fear on both sides. They've been inseparable ever since we found him." Elena could not explain the connection she was witnessing. Dr. Roberts smiled kindly. "Animals can sense goodness in people, especially in children. Their souls are simpler and more honest." Checking her computer screen again, Dr. Roberts frowned. "That's strange. The chip is registered to a Henry Walker." Elena's breath caught. "Henry Walker from Pine Street?" she whispered. Dr. Roberts nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, poor man. I'm sorry you didn't know him well," Elena admitted. "I'd seen him during my morning runs sometimes." Dr. Roberts continued. "That explains why the chip wasn't scanning properly. It's at least 10 years old, one of the first-generation models. Mr. Walker got Rex as a therapy dog after his wife passed away." Marcus leaned forward, confused. "Wait, you're speaking about him in the past tense?" Dr. Roberts looked surprised. "Oh, you hadn't heard? Henry passed away about 4 months ago, a heart attack. They believe he was found in his garden." The news hit Elena like a physical blow. If Henry Walker had been Rex's owner and he'd died months ago, where had Rex been all this time? "That doesn't make sense," Marcus echoed. "If Mr. Walker died 4 months ago, where has Rex been?" Dr. Roberts shrugged. "That's the mystery, isn't it? Dogs are incredibly loyal. Sometimes when they lose an owner, they stay near the home waiting for them to return." Aiden's quiet voice broke in. "The sad man isn't coming back, so Rex came to find a new family." Dr. Roberts smiled at the boy. "Dogs know when it's time to move on." After bandaging Rex's wound and providing antibiotics, Dr. Roberts explained the options. They could take Rex to the local shelter or foster him until a permanent home was found. Before either Elena or Marcus could reply, Aiden spoke up firmly. "Rex is staying with us. He chose us." His tone brooked no argument. Elena looked at Marcus, seeing her own conflicted feelings mirrored in his eyes. Taking in a large dog like Rex was a big responsibility, but the way he had come into their lives, the immediate bond with Aiden, and the strange connection with Henry Walker's memory, felt significant. "We can foster him for now, just until he heals and we find him a good home," Elena said softly. Aiden's face lit up with relief, and yet there was a knowing look in his eyes, as if he understood this was only the first step in a journey that had already been mapped out. On the drive home that day, the atmosphere in the car was quiet. Rex lay across the back seat with his head in Aiden's lap, his eyes drifting closed under the gentle petting. "What do you think happened to him?" Marcus asked softly, glancing at Elena. "After Mr. Walker died, why would Rex suddenly leave the house after 4 months?" Elena shook her head. "I don't know. Unless—" A troubling thought occurred to her. "Unless something scared him away." "Like the person who stabbed him?" Marcus asked. Elena nodded, a chill running down her spine despite the warmth of the car. What if someone came to the Walker place? Maybe a squatter or burglar? Perhaps Rex tried to defend his territory and got hurt in the process. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter, then said, "Maybe it wasn't random." Elena glanced back at Aiden, who was sound asleep with his arm protectively draped over Rex's neck. "Maybe he recognized your scent," Marcus suggested softly. "It's a reasonable explanation." Yet Elena couldn't shake the feeling that Rex had chosen their home for a very specific reason. As they pulled into their driveway, Elena noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. A police car parked across the street, and Officer Taylor walking toward the house with a serious expression. "Marcus," she whispered, "stay in the car with Aiden and Rex. I'll see what he wants." Marcus stepped out to meet Officer Taylor at the edge of the property. Their conversation was too distant to catch, but after a moment, Taylor handed Marcus a piece of paper and pointed toward the backyard. When Marcus returned, his face was grim. "Someone reported a break-in attempt at the Petersons' house last night," he said quietly. "Officer Taylor is checking with everyone on the street. They didn't catch who did it, but he mentioned that there was blood on the Petersons' back fence, enough to suggest the intruder was injured." Elena's eyes widened as she connected the dots. "You don't think," she whispered. Marcus admitted, "I don't know what to think, but the timing is suspicious. Rex shows up injured around the same time someone tried to break in 3 doors down." They both looked at Rex, the mysterious dog who had appeared during the storm with a knife wound and secrets they barely understood. "What are we going to do?" Elena whispered before Marcus could answer. Aiden stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He looked at his parents and then down at Rex with a smile of pure affection. "Rex saved us," he murmured, half asleep. "The bad man was coming, but Rex scared him away." A cold shiver ran down Elena's spine at her son's words. How could he possibly know about an attempted break-in while he was asleep? And why did he think Rex had scared the intruder away? Unless Rex hadn't been running from danger when he collapsed on their porch, but instead had been running toward it, as if sensing a threat only he could perceive. Rex lifted his head slightly, his amber eyes meeting Elena's with an intelligent, knowing gaze. In that moment, she was certain. Rex had come to their home for a reason, and until they understood what that reason was, he wasn't going anywhere. Marcus broke the tense silence. "Let's get inside. Whatever's going on, we'll figure it out together." As they helped Rex into the house, Elena couldn't shake the growing sense that their lives had changed forever the moment the German Shepherd had collapsed on their doorstep. There were mysteries here, dangerous ones, and Rex was at the center of them all. Unbeknownst to them, at the far end of the street, a dark sedan sat with tinted windows. Its driver watched their every move with cold, calculating eyes. In the following days, a routine began to form. Rex's wound started to heal, his appetite returned, and his eyes grew brighter. Aiden changed as well. Always a quiet child before, he now chattered constantly, to Rex, to his parents, even to himself. It was as if the German Shepherd had unlocked a confidence in the boy that had long been dormant. One evening, as Marcus and Elena watched Aiden reading a picture book to Rex, who lay beside him with his head resting on his paws, they exchanged a quiet smile. "He's a different kid," Marcus whispered. "I've never seen him this confident, this happy. Elena agreed. Their once quiet son had blossomed in Rex's presence, showing a self-assurance and emotional maturity that surprised everyone. That night, as Elena tucked Aiden into bed with Rex already settled in his usual spot on the floor, she asked softly, "How did you know Rex was special right from the start?" Aiden yawned, his eyelids growing heavy. "I just knew, Mom. He wasn't just any dog. He was our dog. He was always meant to be our dog." Elena kissed his forehead and stroked Rex's head. The German shepherd looked up with intelligent, knowing eyes, and Elena felt with absolute certainty that Aiden was right. Some connections defy explanation. Some souls recognize one another instantly, and sometimes a wounded guardian angel arrives exactly when you need him, even if he comes in the form of a German shepherd collapsing on your doorstep during a storm. In the weeks that followed, the Turners settled into a new normal. Rex accompanied Aiden to school, waited patiently outside grocery stores while Elena shopped, and joined Marcus on evening jogs. He became a beloved fixture in their lives, a constant source of comfort and amazement. Yet the special bond between Rex and Aiden remained as mysterious as ever, defying conventional explanation. Often, Elena would find them sitting together in silence, gazing into each other's eyes as if conversing in a language only they understood. One evening, while watching Aiden and Rex play in the backyard, Marcus commented, "Whatever it is, it's been good for Aiden. I've never seen him so joyful." Summer turned to fall, and with the changing leaves came an unexpected invitation from Sandra Webb of the Veterans Support Network. Sandra explained that a memorial service was being held for Henry Walker and other veterans who had passed away that year. They wanted Rex to attend as a special guest of honor, since he had been Henry's closest companion for years. "It would mean a lot to Henry's old friends to see Rex there," she said over the phone. Elena agreed immediately, touched by the gesture. The memorial was scheduled for a crisp Saturday in October, exactly 3 months after Rex first appeared on their doorstep. On the morning of the service, Elena helped Aiden dress in his best clothes, a small blue suit he usually complained about but wore without protest that day. "Rex needs me to be there," Aiden explained. When Elena commented on his cooperation, he added quietly, "I'm sad about the sad man." Meanwhile, Rex seemed subdued that morning. His usual energy was tempered by a solemn air, as if he understood the significance of the day. The memorial service was held in a small chapel on the grounds of a veteran cemetery, where rows of white headstones stretched across gently rolling hills and American flags fluttered in the autumn breeze. As people in military uniforms and veteran caps entered, a hush fell over the crowd. When Rex, accompanied by Aiden and their parents, walked in, the assembled veterans stood at attention, offering a silent salute to the dog who had served one of their own so faithfully. Elena felt tears prick her eyes as Aiden squeezed her hand and whispered, "Rex says it's okay to cry, Mom. The sad man would understand." The service was simple yet moving. Veterans shared stories of Henry Walker, his bravery in combat, the struggles he faced after returning home, and his quiet generosity toward fellow veterans. Sandra recalled how Henry had once told her, "Rex saved my life," her voice catching slightly as she spoke in a measured tone, not overly dramatic, but filled with deep emotion. After the service, the group moved to a small reception area where photos of Henry were displayed. One particular photo caught Elena's eye, a picture of a young Henry sitting on his front porch with a small German shepherd puppy in his lap. An elderly man explained that this puppy was Rex's predecessor. Henry had always said that both dogs shared the same spirit. Elena studied the photo closely. The resemblance between the puppy and Rex was striking, from the intelligent eyes to the distinctive markings. Later, they visited Henry's grave. The headstone was simple, bearing his name, rank, and dates of service, with one line inscribed beneath, "Never alone in the darkest night." Rex approached the grave slowly, sniffed the freshly turned earth, and then sat beside it, looking out over the cemetery as though on guard. Elena recalled how, at night, Rex had kept watch over Aiden. "He's saying goodbye," Aiden murmured softly as he stood next to the dog. That evening, as they drove home, Rex rested his head on Aiden's lap in the back seat. By the time they reached home, Rex seemed more exhausted than ever. "He needs to rest," Aiden said, gently helping Rex to his bed in the corner of the living room. With a deep sigh, Rex settled down, his eyes closing slowly as Aiden stroked his head and whispered words Elena couldn't quite catch. That night, as Elena tucked Aiden into bed, Hero curled up in a small bed beside him. Even in his sleep, the puppy refused to leave Aiden's side, a protective instinct reminiscent of Rex. "Do you think Hero will have dreams about Rex?" Aiden asked sleepily. Elena smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "Rex used to dream about Scout, the sad man's first dog," Aiden explained. "Scout showed him what to do." Elena wasn't sure how to respond to such a fanciful idea, but after everything they'd experienced with Rex, she couldn't dismiss it entirely. "Maybe," she said softly, "some connections are special in that way." Aiden nodded, satisfied with her answer. "Rex isn't really gone, Mom. He's just helping Hero now, teaching him how to protect us." Later, as the wind rustled through the oak tree above Rex's grave, and a faint bark echoed in the distance, Elena stood by the window. "Thank you for everything," she whispered, convinced that some protectors never truly leave. "Before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from.